Alrighty, so match week number 6 is upon us as we have now officially finished the March international break, which means that for most teams, they're pretty much going to get all their players that were on international duty that wasn't available in the last match week back. And I say most because there are going to be some players that probably could still be missing due to the fact that some of these players might have traveled a long distance to get themselves back to their club level. Consider the last international game didn't conclude until Wednesday. But with that being said, it's great the fact that we're not going to have this discussion in terms of the frustration with some of these teams that's going to be missing players and pretty much are crippled because of the international break. But with that being said, in terms of match week number 6, we got 3 Saturday matinee games, including 2 that's going to be starting at the same time, and then we also have 3 7:30 p.m. Eastern start. We also have 4 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 3 10:30 p.m. Eastern, the West Coast game, and then we of course have the 2 Sunday game. And again, I like the fact that it is spread out, and since I don't have any plan to ground hop this weekend, most likely I might be able to do the review of all these games in a timely fashion. But with that being said, let us begin with the first game and the first of 2 matinee game that starts at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific, and we start off with New England taking on the New York Red Bulls. So as I mentioned before with the New England Revolution, they're one of 5 teams I mentioned in that video that is currently winless, and I did pick them to be the last team to potentially end their winless run according to my rankings. So yeah, that means they're probably going to win this week, isn't it? Because anytime when I decided to say a team is winless and they're going to winless run continue, it's going to end relatively quick. And they're facing against a Red Bull side that is 2-2-1, and have been kind of a little bit mediocre this season. Though I think a lot of people kind of expected that that's kind of the season the Red Bulls will have this year. But in terms of all-time meeting, 42, 21, and 34 in favor of the New York Red Bulls. And yeah, we'll see whether or not if New England can take advantage of it, and especially can they finally score their first goal that is by one of their players, because despite the fact that they do have one goal to their name, they have yet to score a goal that is not own goal, that is, and no player on their team have yet to register a goal. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're now 6 weeks in the season and the Revs have only scored one goal and nobody on their team have scored so far. And then we got an all Canadian clash between Toronto FC versus the Vancouver Whitecaps. So Toronto is the other team that I mentioned that is winless with an 0-1-4 record, while Vancouver have a 4-0-1 record. And as always, whenever I mention TFC, I hate to say it, but congratulations, Vancouver, you get the free point sweepstake in terms of TFC playing against you. And I also mentioned the fact that as much as TFC is the Santa Claus of MLS this season, eventually you would think that things are going to turn around, and especially with the way that when you look at the last couple of games, they're not getting blown out. I mean, yes, they haven't played well whatsoever, but at least they're not getting blown out. They're being competitive in some of these games, and I think maybe that's kind of all you ask for in terms of the expectation that this team has had. But it's not going to be easy against a Jasper Sorensen side that they're probably pissed after last week losing their first game, and especially most likely they are going to get Ryan White back into this team that they clearly missed in the last game. Yeah, this could be one of those games for TFC where yeah, it's probably going to be another loss unless if Vancouver might go on a bit of a funk after a good start to their season. By the way, all-time meeting 11-5-9 in favor of the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then we have the last matinee game that starts at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, and it's got the Colorado Rapids versus Charlotte FC. Now, this is kind of an interesting one because this is kind of one of those games where I would say it's the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. For Colorado this season, their attack has been relatively good, whereas for Charlotte, we know how good their defense is. They're an absolute lockdown team, and they're a team that after that thrashing that they hand the San Jose Earthquakes in the last game, they're definitely a team that you could say are in the top echelon of the Eastern Conference right now, and they have a 3-1-1 record, while Colorado have a 2-2-1 record. Now, neither of these teams have ever got a win when both of these teams face off against each other. It's been 2 draw between both of these teams, and we'll see whether or not if that going to be the case in this one. Charlotte so far on the road this season, they're okay this year when it comes to their road form. Their home form has been exceptional. In fact, I think they've been perfect so far at home. The road form hasn't been kind of kind of the same, which is kind of interesting because for a team that is a very defensive kind of team, I would have assumed that they would be better on the road compared to them playing at home. But we'll see whether or not if they can end that against a Rapids team that we know this season. It's been kind of there's some good things that has happened this season for the Rapids, but then there are definitely some concern, especially the fact that the defense times has been very iffy, and the fact that Zach Steffen, if it wasn't for him being back to his old self, yeah, maybe Colorado might not be having as good of a record as their record suggested. And now we move on into the busy Saturday night action games, starting with the first of three games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, and that of course is Atlanta United versus NYCFC. So Atlanta 1-2-2, whereas NYCFC is 2-2-1. All-time meeting 5-8-4 in favor of NYCFC, and there's no doubt that for Atlanta it has been a very underwhelming start under Ronnie Del there, and I think he even admits it. With all the money that they spend this season. The biggest problem again for Atlanta, and I think a lot of people shouldn't be surprised by that. Yeah, their defense has been shaky at best at times, and also the attacking end. Despite the fact that Emmanuel Latelaf has been advertised with him scoring the goals, he's been pretty much the only guy that can score the goal. There's not a lot of player on this team that is stepping up in terms of scoring the goals, and that might be a big concern for this Atlanta team, especially. Like I said, their defense hasn't really been that good, and hasn't been at the top shape as many people will think that this team could be. Now they do have a chance to face against an NYCFC side that, yeah, so far on the road, this team has kind of what we saw last season, a team that have really struggled on the road. It's pretty clear that the reason why they've been so good at home is because when you play in the friendly confine known as Yankee Stadium, yeah, with how tight the pitch is, they get a heavy advantage of it. But they seems like can't really quite adjust that when they maybe play in a normal pitch. Though we'll see whether or not if they can get a better result. I mean, the last couple of road games has not been great for Pascal Janssen. I mean, even the last game against Columbus, where they just pretty much parked the bus for the whole game and didn't do much. We'll see whether or not that might be the same case in this game against a Atlanta team that desperately want to get things going. I mean, it's been a slow start for Ronnie Adela's side, and with all these head coaches maybe getting a new head coach booth, unfortunately for Atlanta, they're not really receiving it in the beginning of the season. And then we got DC United versus the Columbus Crew as the second 7:30 p.m. Eastern start. So DC, they have a 1-3-1 record, whereas Columbus have a 2-3-0 record. All-time meeting 38, 15, and 36 in favor of DC United. By the way, I don't know why I wrote Charlotte there. I probably should have wrote Columbus there in terms of the all-time meeting. And yeah, this is kind of an interesting one because it's one of these games where you have one team that is Columbus that they clearly miss Cucho Hernandez. I mean, you can see how much of a drop off it is when it comes to their goal scoring present. I mean, their defense is still relatively good. But the fact that they're not scoring is a little bit concerning for Wilfred Nancy's side. But one thing I will say about Wilfred Nancy's side is that it's not because of lack of trying when it comes to their finishing. They just haven't been really good in terms of their finishing. Though they probably might get a lot of chances again against a DC side that, yeah, they got absolutely crushed in the last game against Orlando City. And I mentioned before, with DC, yes, coming out of that Orlando game, they were still unbeaten. It's a very misleading record because I don't think DC has been playing relatively well, especially I don't think they have took advantage of the easy schedule that they have in the beginning of the season. And we saw when they did actually play a real team in Orlando City, they got absolutely thrashed. And now they play another real team in Columbus that have yet to lose a game, despite the fact that they have their attacking struggle. Yeah, we'll see whether or not if DC can bounce back after that tough resort that they had against Orlando on the road. And then moving on into the next game is Inter Miami versus the Philadelphia Union. And I'm sorry, but this game should have been the game that be feature as a matinee game or even the Sunday night soccer game, because as I'll mention, the Sunday night soccer game, yeah, that one is a little bit underwhelming. And the reason why I say that is because this is a game between, I believe, the top two team in the Eastern Conference right now, already a heavyweight battle upon us. And while we have one team that were expected to be a team that finished near the top of the standing, if not at the top of the standing in the East, and maybe win the Sapporo Show in Miami, nobody thought that this would be the case with the Philadelphia Union. I mean, the Union they bounced back after after losing their first game against Nashville, a 1-0 win against St. Louis, and now they have improved their record to 4-0-1. And in terms of the all-time meeting, 5-2-4 in favor of Inter Miami, so relatively close between both of these teams. And yeah, as I said, I'm very intrigued to see how this matchup is going to be. This is no doubt the biggest test, I think you got to say, for Bradley Carnell's team, because while the Union has been playing relatively well, especially in the beginning of the season, where they were facing against really tough team in the beginning of the season as well, and they passed with flying color. But that's different now that when they have to go on the road against Miami. I mean, I don't expect them to win, for them to maybe send a message that they might be truly back, because anytime when you play against Inter Miami, you have to be perfect against Inter Miami to get a win, or hope that maybe Messi isn't playing with this team, which most likely he probably will be playing with this team, because he wasn't with Argentina during the international break. But they can go toe to toe with Inter Miami. There could be a sense that, yeah, I think the Union not only are truly back, but Bradley Carnell is definitely cooking something good. And now all of a sudden, that window that we thought it was closed for this Union side seems like it could be wide open if they can get a big win and send a message to the rest of the Eastern Conference that they mean business heading into this season. Now, moving on, in terms of now looking at the 8:30 p.m. Eastern West Coast late kickoff start, we start off with the first of four 8:30 p.m. Eastern game, and that, of course, is the red hot Chicago Fire. They play against Montreal in this one, and I say the Fire are red hot because, no pun intended, they've won three in a row after a slow start under Greg Berhalter in the first two games. They have won three straight road game and are back at home for the first time in three games, and they're facing against a Montreal side that the good news is there's only two more games left in this road trip. I mean, this team desperately needs this road trip to end. You can clearly see this epic long road trip to begin the season has took a toll on this team, and I even mentioned before how, yeah, if they want to end their winless run, they have to play against probably one of the hottest team right now, and one of the bigger story this early season with Greg Berhalter. Seems like they've found something good with this Fire team, and the Fire deserve this too, because this franchise have been through so much tough times, to a point where I feel like this free game winning streak, even though I know some Fire fans said that this could be a little bit misleading, I think they've been playing relatively well when you look at the last three games, and that it feels like it could be sustainable in the long term. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 13-7-9 in favor of Montreal. So Montreal actually had a pretty good record against the Chicago Fire. Though again, one thing I will say for the Fire that they got to be a little bit cautious is the fact that, one, they have not won at home this season. All three of their wins has been coming on the road, which, if you would have said that about the Chicago Fire last season, or even in previous season, that would not be the case, because this team has never been a good road team for the past decade or so, and they're looking to finally get their first win of the season, and they're facing against a lowly Montreal side that, well, Montreal have definitely not been playing well at all in the last couple of games. This is the Montreal side that has a new interim head coach. So yeah, there's no doubt that with the new interim head coach boost, maybe that will help Montreal get things going, and that's where Chicago's got to be aware of that heading into this game. And then we move on to the next one, which also feature another winless team, that is Sporting KC. They play against FC Dallas in this game, and just like Chicago, Dallas is a team that have struggled this season at home. They have a 2-1-2 record, where Sporting KC 0-1-4, and still are looking for their first win of the season, and their first win since September of last year as well. All-time meaning 36, 14, and 32 in favor of Sporting KC, and as I said, there could be a case that maybe this could be the game that Sporting KC could end their winless run, and it's not enough because of the fact that they finally got rid of Peter Remise, even though that's what every Sporting KC fans want. But as I said, Dallas, they're a team that's been kind of up and down this season. There's been times where they have played some entertaining soccer under Peter Crow, and then there are times where they look very lackluster, as we've seen this season at home a couple of times. And again, with the Sporting KC side, at least the last couple of games. Well, actually, I don't want to say the last couple of games. It has not been great whatsoever with this team, but knowing that they're facing against a team that hasn't done well at home, that could be a case where maybe this can finally be the game that they might end their winless run, and especially they have beaten Dallas before on the road as well. So we'll see whether or not if this might finally be the day where Sporting KC finally can taste 3 points for the first time in September. They have by far the longest winless run going back to last year of any MLS team. And then we move on to the next match, which is Minnesota versus RSL. So this is a rematch of the first round of the Western Conference, and I know that because I went to the second game of the first round at Allianz Field. I'll never forget that night. One of the best night I've ever experienced watching the Loons at Allianz Field. And probably even Loons fans have said that that was probably the best and loudest that Allianz Field has got ever since that building was open. Now, what's interesting about this game is the fact that not only the fact that I think this game might end in a draw because it feels like both of these teams just simply can't get a win when they face against each other. It's like it's been almost written the last couple of meetings that it has to end in a draw. But what's interesting is that besides the fact that Minnesota have a 2-2-1 record and RSL have a 2-0-3 record, and the all-time meeting is 7-9-3 in favor of Minnesota. There could be a chance that we could see a snow game in this one, and you know how much I love snow game, and it feels like it's almost kind of given the fact that when Minnesota play early in the season, there always is a high chance that could be a snow game. I know it's going to be raining in this one, but we could see some snow flurries in this one, similar to what we saw when Minnesota played against Sporting KC, where that was a game that featured some snow flurries and they had to bring out the orange ball as well. So yeah, there could be a chance we could see that happen in this game as well. And if that is the case, hopefully this time, if Minnesota make it 3-0 against RSL, they don't absolutely self-destruct late in the game. I mean, that's kind of the big problem for this team, where it's been so frustrating seeing how this team has played in the first 5 games. Even though I know their record is not that bad, and they're currently I think six in the Western Conference. They could be right now tied with first if they didn't absolutely have that meltdown against Sporting KC and then gave up that late goal against the Galaxy. And as I said, those 4 points that Minnesota lost because of lapse of concentration late in the game and can't close out game. Mark my words, it's going to come back to haunt this team late in the season. Now we have Nashville versus FC Cincinnati to finish the last of the 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific slate. But for Nashville, they have definitely been on a good run of form themselves with a 3-1-1 record, whereas Cincinnati, yeah, it's been a very mediocre start for Pat Nolan's side, a 2-1-2 record. All-time meaning 3-4-2 in favor of Nashville SC. So when you have one team that's been doing very well and the other not so much, you could say maybe the team that have found some good form could potentially get the win. But I will say that, Pat Nolan, Cincinnati side have always tends to play much better on draw as we saw last season as well, and even in some extents this season as well, compared to when they're playing at home. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if they can finally get going again. For the Cincinnati side, it's been a very underwhelming start to the season. Some of their big signing hasn't really kind of get things going. An example of that is Kevin Denke. Despite the fact that he did score a couple of goals for this team, he has definitely not yet live up to the big price tag that he of course has on his head, and especially on the defensive side, they've also have not been very good this season as well. And then we move on into the West Coast game, and we start off with the first of three being the LA Galaxy versus Orlando City. So when I made the video looking at the 5 winless team, I say the Galaxy is probably the team most likely going to get their first win of the season out of the 5. And the reason why I say that is because they definitely played much better in the last couple of games and show yeah, they could definitely get a win eventually, and especially with players that is soon coming back from injury, there could be a chance that the Galaxy could look like the Galaxy of last season. And they're facing against an Orlando City side that have a 2-1-2 record. As the all-time meeting 4-0-3 in favor of Orlando. But you got to remember those 2 wins that Orlando City has had. One was against Toronto. One was against DC. Yeah, those two teams are not good team in the Eastern Conference. When they do face against tougher opponent. And I know Orlando City fans will say, well, they're facing a winless Galaxy side. That looks like a bad team as well. Well, no, I don't think the Galaxy is bad. I also think that the Galaxy is not as bad as what their record is said, at least in the last couple of games. And yeah, there could be a case where this could be a real test for Orlando City going on the road against the Galaxy side that, like I said, maybe things could turn for this team, and especially with players getting back healthy and also started scoring goals again, which is a struggle for them in the first couple of games. Maybe things are starting to turn for Greg Vanny's side, and finally they might finally get that first win of the season in this one against Orlando. And then we got another great matchup and another game that probably should be worthy of a Sunday night soccer game between San Diego FC and LAFC. So San Diego, fresh off of their first loss in their franchise history against Austin with a 2-2-1 record, they're facing against an LAFC side, and their record is actually wrong. It's not 3-0-2. It's actually 3-2-0. LAFC actually have not lost, or actually, no, I'm sorry. What am I saying? LAFC have lost 2 games this season. Ignore what I've just said. I had a brain fart moment there. But yeah, this is the first ever meeting between both of these teams. And you know that anytime when San Diego play one of those California teams, especially an LA team, you know there's always that rivalry between San Diego and LA team. For me, I'm definitely want to ask San Diego FC fans, who do they really have in terms of the bigger rival? Is it the Galaxy or is it LAFC? Because I know San Diego fans do not like LA. This even goes back to what we see in baseball with the Padres and Dodgers. Seems like the harder rivalry when it comes to comparing this in California right now. So we'll see whether or not if that might be the same case with soccer as well. And that the first time when San Diego played against the LA team, it was a historic moment. They won their first game against the Galaxy. Now we'll see whether or not they can do that against LAFC, and especially with the way that with San Diego being the team that likes to have possession, and at least in the last game, we kind of saw the flaws of this team of the team getting exposed with those transitional moments, especially with the direct ball. This could be a game where it could be a concern if you're San Diego facing against an LAFC side that clearly loves to hit on the transition and clearly likes to play those long ball as we've seen with Steve Toronto's side in the past. And then lastly, the last Saturday game is the Heritage Cup game between the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Seattle Sounders. I know a lot of people don't really know what the Heritage Cup is. It's just basically the name of this so-called rivalry between the Quakes and the Sounders. But the Quakes, after a great start to the season, yeah, they have definitely fall back down to earth, losing 3 in a row now, including that 4-1 thrashing that they had against Charlotte, and now their record is 2-0-3. But for Seattle, it's not anything better for them as well. 1-2-2 is their record, and it feels like Seattle is having the same problem that they had in the beginning of last season. They have struggled coming out of the gate, especially on the attacking end, where they have been relatively toothless. Now, I'm assuming they're going to get Jordan Morris back in this game, which could be huge because, yeah, in the last game, it was pretty telling story that they desperately missed Jordan Morris with how toothless that they were going for on the attacking end. But in terms of the all-time record, 16 win apiece and 12 draw apiece between both of these teams. At one point, it was a all-time meeting where it was heavily in favor of the Sounders, but for whatever reason, ever since the Quakes finally broke that streak where they didn't beat the Sounders for like what 14 straight games, now all of a sudden the table has turned. Now the Quakes have the upper edge against the Sounders, and now I'm pretty sure Sounders fans are knowing the feeling of how Quakes fan felt like a couple of years when they couldn't win against them, and the fact that it's gonna be frustrated that now you have a team that simply just owned you the last couple of meeting as the Quakes have had against Seattle, and there could be a chance it could be the same thing as well because as we saw last season, even though the Quakes didn't win a lot of games. This was one of the team that they went unbeaten, and especially when they play at PayPal Park, this was the team that they were able to win. And it was a high scoring affair as well, which was kind of weird because, again, both of those teams were not known to be a goal scoring team, but the Quakes win out 3-2 in that game. And especially with the way that, again, I wouldn't be surprised it could be one of those high scoring affairs as well, because I think for the Quakes, it's pretty obvious that, in this 3 game losing streak, it's not because of the fact that this team is playing entirely just absolutely horrendous like the last season. They definitely have played much better in terms of these losses compared to last season, and I know that kind of doesn't make sense. But when you look at these results, they've been very unlucky when it comes to the chances that they create and couldn't finish. They have one of the highest XG in the league, and they could have definitely scored more goals. And in other words, really underperforming their XG in the last couple of games. And you would think that eventually things are going to work out for them. Eventually, they will convert those chances that they missed. But that being said, it's going to be hard to try to face this Sounders team and create that same amount of numbers. Though I said that they did create 29 shots against one of the toughest defense that is Charlotte FC. So we'll see how this game is going to go for the Quakes and whether they can bounce back and end this 3 game losing run. And now we get to the Sunday games, and the first Sunday game is St. Louis versus Austin FC. That starts at 2:15 p.m. Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Pacific, which means that anytime when a game starts 15 after the hour, it's going to be on Fox, isn't it? But for St. Louis, they have a 2-2-1 record, whereas Austin have a 3-0-2 record, and Austin slowly but surely have climbed themselves near the top of the Western Conference. I think they're currently second in the West, and it's been a very under the radar kind of start to the season for Austin, considered they haven't really been playing relatively well this season. They definitely haven't scored a lot of goals this season under Nico Estevez. But one thing that has been a big improvement for Austin this year is the fact that they've been much better on the defensive end compared to when Josh Wolf was coaching this team. Now for St. Louis, it's kind of the same thing. They're a team that has been pretty good, at least on the defensive front, but they just can't score goals. So something tells me this could be a low scoring game between both of these teams. But in terms of the all time record, 3-1-0 in favor of St. Louis. So yeah, Austin has not had their luck against St. Louis, and especially they definitely do not want to remember what happened the first time when both of these teams met each other, where St. Louis if there's one thing that St. Louis fan will always thank Los Verdes fan is that thank you for giving us the first ever win in our franchise history a couple of years ago. And then lastly, the Sunday night soccer game is the Portland Timbers versus the Houston Dynamo. So like I said, this felt like another very underwhelming Sunday night soccer game. I mean, I was assuming maybe when they decided the Sunday night soccer game that this could be a relatively good matchup against the Dynamo side that maybe could get off to a good start like we saw last season, and the Timbers may be the same thing as well. But yeah, not really. Though I will say that the Timbers did have their most impressive performance in the last game of the season, winning 3-0 on the road against the Rapids. But now they're facing against the Dynamo side that is currently actually, are they really winless this season? I don't think they're winless this season. I might have actually got their record wrong. Let me see. Yeah, I swear that Houston haven't won a game. No, Houston is actually winless in this game. So yeah, actually, yeah, you know what I just realized? I actually forgot about the Houston Dynamo and putting them in this category as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably some people in the comment section in that last video saying there's actually not 5 teams that is winless this season. There actually is technically 6 teams that is winless this season. And if I want to say about the Houston Dynamo in terms of their chances in the ranking, I mean, I'll put them probably at number three on the list. I mean, I know it hasn't been a great start for Ben Olsen team, but they have looked competitive in some games as well, especially on the road that is. And there this is a chance that they could maybe get themselves their first win of the season, especially against the Timber side that yes, they got a good win in the last game, but they're still a very inconsistent team this season. And this is not a big surprise because that's the problem that Phil Neville team had in the past with Inter Miami. But in terms of the all-time meaning, 10-9-9 in favor of the Portland Timbers. And yeah, like I said, I think the only reason why this is a Sunday night soccer game is because I'm pretty sure the Apple TV and the MLS executive want to have a Sunday night game at Providence Park, want that atmosphere as well. But if that's the case, I feel like they could have had that against a much marquee opponent than the Houston Dynamo that is. And this is no disrespect to Houston, but yeah, again, compared to some other games that we had that could be marquee matchup. I mean, if I had to switch in terms of a marquee matchup, I would have actually just switched this game in for the Portland versus Houston game because you know that there's going to be a good atmosphere in San Diego. I was gonna say that I might switch this one, but I think Apple TV has like a limit of how many Miami game could be on Sunday Night Soccer. I'm pretty sure not everybody wants to hear Taylor Twellman and Jake Simmons, and especially Taylor Twellman, just kind of milk up about his messy slander and so forth. So again, if I would have had to pick a game out of all of this to replace this one, I would have absolutely put the San Diego versus LAFC on Sunday Night Soccer compared to the Timbers and the Houston Dynamo. But we'll see if this is going to be a good game. I mean, the last Sunday Night Soccer game, which wasn't really a Sunday Night Soccer game, it was more like an afternoon game last week, was pretty good between Austin and St. Louis, and we'll see whether or not if that can replicate in this game as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of all of this game, or shall I say preview of all of these game that is. Of course, for the review, if everything goes right, I could be able to review all 3 of these games after it's over, and then, of course, I'll try to see if I can review all 10 of these games on Saturday night. Most likely, I'll probably post it on Sunday because, yeah, I'm probably not going to be uploading like at 1 in the morning. I'll probably just post it tomorrow morning and schedule it there. And then, of course, I'll basically do a review of the two Sunday game after the final Sunday game is over. But yeah, until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of these games and your prediction for all 15 of these games in match week number 6. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.